And I love the theme of this series because it's all about worship. How being closer has to do not so much with music, because the moment that we say worship, you probably went to like, oh, is that time where we do this? Or we do that? Or whatever kind of worship you do with your arms, or we go on our knees. But actually, worship is so much more than that. Worship has very little to do with music, and it has everything to do with the direction where our hearts go. Because every heart has a direction. You can see it, your bank account can see it, your friends can see it. Our heart has a direction. So we want that direction to be the direction of the presence of God. This year as a church, we are digging on what it is to be like, pursuing the presence of God. And that goes with worship. We're going to use stories of people in the Bible that show us how to worship. And most of them, again, have nothing to do with music. There was no instruments. There was no pad on the piano. You know, everything is spiritual when the piano comes up. Like, you know, if I want this moment to be really like moving and stuff, I'll just call Ty to come up, and then you will be like, but at that point in the Bible, very few times worship refer actually to an instrument. Yes, there is an element of that, but it's not just about that. So worship, this is the key thought that we want you to leave with. Worship is our response to presence. When the presence of God shows up, whatever our response is, that is worship. And worship starts by simply showing up. Because how many of us know that the presence of God can come and show, and we are no pitch, no show? Have you ever been an appointment, have made an appointment where the other person doesn't show up? Have you ever have a business when someone made an appointment and they don't show up? That's why all the business now like send you all these nice messages. If you don't show up, 50% off. We will charge you of the fees if you are late. No. Because many of us humans make appointments and then we don't show up. So worship starts by showing up. And the character that we're going to speak about today is Moses. Because Moses is the example of how worship is all about showing up, taking a step closer. So if you know the story of the beginning of the Bible in Exodus, you will hear about the Israelites doing the right thing and the wrong thing. And it was like a dance that they had. You know, it's like, we get it, we love Jesus, yeah, and then they get it wrong. And then God comes and it's like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, so sorry, Jesus, so sorry. And then they go like, we love you, Jesus, and then they get it wrong. And God comes again, and they're like, what are you doing? Oh, so sorry, God, this time is for reals. They have this relationship with God where they constantly need to be sorted out. I think that's why a lot of the times the Bible refers to them as children. I don't think it was a cute thing. I can't confirm yet. I will in heaven when I go and speak to the person that wrote the Bible. I'll be like, is this why? But I get a hint that sometimes they're called the children of God because they were acting like children. So in Exodus 32, we see the background of the children of Israel acting like children. And because Moses left the house, the parents have left, it's chaos. And what do? They decided, oh, if we make a golden idol, that will be our solution. And they all went and did that. So this is where Exodus 33 is happening. God is having a conversation with Moses. They're having a meeting. And Moses speaks to God, and God speaks to Moses. And verse 1 tells us that God is telling Moses and the Israelites to leave where they are. It says, depart and go from up here to the land, the promised land, the one that I was going to give your descendants. How awesome is that? Israel just messed up terribly. And God doesn't come and say, oh, because you did that, you are grounded. You're not getting that toy anymore. You are not getting the promised land anymore. God says, you're going to leave this place and go to the promised land. So they're like, that's good. He's not taking the promised land. I would have if I was God. I'm like, oh, you want to go and create idols? Tell that idol, that cow that you made, let them give you promised land. But he doesn't. And then verse 2 says, my angel will go before you. I will protect you. So again, God is confirming that he's not upset with them in the sense that now you're on your own. You know how we do with our kids sometimes? You're telling them to do something, they don't listen. You tell them, and then you're like, you know what? You're on your own now. Learn your own lesson. And if you're not letting them learn, they're going to learn later, and it's going to be much of a bigger issue. So let them learn from young in a responsible manner. So God is saying, okay, no, you're not on your own. I will still protect you. I will send my angel with you. But then in verse 3, he says to Moses, I will not go up in your midst. And this is where it gets tricky. Because God is not denying them the promised land, and he's not denying them the protection, but he's saying, I will not be with you. My presence will not be with you. Now, Moses had a challenge. Because he could either say, this is good. I mean, 3 out of 2 is a good mark to get. We get in the promised land, we get in the protection, we just don't get his presence. Should we bargain here? Israel could say, as long as you give us the promised land, God, that we've been praying for, as long as you give us your protection, if you don't come with, I'm good. I can do that. But Moses doesn't settle for that. And then verse 4, God speaks to the Israelites and tells them to take off their stuff, all the earrings and the makeup and everything they were showing off as a sign that they would repent for what just happened in chapter 32. And then the Israelites listen and take off everything. It's like you saying, take off your shoes, their brand, take your jacket that makes you so proud. Don't drive the Ferrari to church today. You're going to leave it in the garage because you need to show that your heart is feeling sorry for what you just did. And they do. And in verse 6 says that the Israelites took everything off, all the gold, all the silver, all the stuff that they had on top of them, to show that they were mourning, that they were regretting what they did. What's funny is that is the gold and silver that they were using for the idol, right? In chapter 32. And in chapter 34, 35 tell us that that's what they used to build the temple of God. What was the difference? I think it was the direction of their heart. The direction of your heart is going to make you use things to either build idols or build a temple for God. It's up to you what you're choosing. So we take it up from Exodus 33, verse 7 to 11. Says, now Moses used to take his own tent, anybody into camping, and pitch it outside the camp, far away from the camp, and he called it the tent of the meeting of God with his own people. And everyone who sought the Lord will go out to the temporary tent of the meeting, which was outside the camp. This is what Moses said. He hears from God, I'll give you the promised land. I'm giving you my protection. I'm just not going to give you my promise. And instead of settling up for us, he says, I need to go and meet with Jesus. I need to go and meet with God. So I'm going to go outside the camp, which means effort. How many of us can't open the Bible at 5 o'clock in the morning because we're so tired? If we read it, we'll try to read it with one eye on our bed. And now Moses is getting out of his tent, out of his room, going to pitch a tent outside. Imagine going to your neighborhood, like the park in the neighborhood, and be like, sorry, I just need to meet with God. So I'm just going to pitch my tent here for everybody to see so that he could meet with God. He was intentional. He was doing it away from the camp too, because I think he was trying to make a point. That this is intentionality. If I'm going to show up, I'm not going to show up in a comfortable manner. Like I could show up in my bed. I could show up in the couch. Don't we? We can just connect online. And if you're watching us online, sorry. So much easier, isn't it? I mean, during Corona, we all connected and some of us had our gowns and our coffee. We didn't need to brush our teeth. You know, we were just doing like the minimal requirement. We skipped worship. We just came to the preach. Or we skipped the end of the preach because it was getting boring. We just went to make another cup of coffee. It was just what it was comfortable, right? And Moses is like, no, I'm not going to do what's comfortable. I'm going to put effort into this. And then it says in verse 8 that whenever Moses went out, that the people all got up. So now not only Moses was making a point to go and worship, everybody was watching him. Everybody was aware that, listen, Moses is going to meet with God. We need to stand. Everything that you are doing, you stop. You stop watching, you stop scrolling, you stop cooking, you stop playing. We're all going to watch what Moses is doing. And then it says a lot of them join and worship from their tent. So we could see what Moses is doing, and we're going to copy what Moses is doing. And then verse 11 says, Joshua, son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. So Moses was done. He finished speaking to God, and Joshua remained in that place. It's almost like he wanted it to linger a little bit more. I love this story. And then Moses continued to meet with God. And in one of these encounters in chapter 33, verse 13 to 15 says, now therefore I pray, you, if I have found favor in your sight. This is Moses is speaking to God. If I have found favor, if God was to tell you now, you can ask me for anything, what will you ask for? If I have found favor in your sight, let me know your ways so that I may know you. Become more deeply and intimately acquainted with you, recognizing and understanding your ways more clearly, and that I may find grace and favor in your sight. And consider also that this nation is your people. In other words, these are your naughty kids. Remember that, please. And the Lord said, my presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest by bringing you and my people into the promised land. And Moses said to this, and this is the highlight verse, if your presence does not go with me, do not lead us from here. If your presence does not go with me, do not lead me. In other words, I'm in the desert. I've been on the desert in the wilderness for 40 years. We keep eating manna. We keep eating quails. Like we have been in this pattern for 40 years. I keep complaining with your people. We get water from the rocks. This is so uncomfortable. You promised me the promised land and you say that I can go. But Moses is saying, if your presence doesn't go with me, I don't want to go. That is worship. That is showing up. That is stepping into your relationship with God and saying, I'm not just going to go for the comfortable promised land and your protection, which is cool. If God was to promise me my promised land right now and protection, I'm like, that is a really good deal. Protection, that means I'm always going to be okay. It's a good deal. But then Moses says, if your presence doesn't go with me, I don't want to go. Even to the promised land. That is hectic. Because worship is our everyday response to His presence. Worship is about moving one step closer to who God is. And you can only do that when you show up. God has something ready for us so many times. Not just on Sunday morning, but yes, Sunday morning. Yet many times we just don't show up because life is busy and we have stuff to do and things happen and they all happen on Sunday, and you know, the shop have good deals on Sunday. It's just already, and the restaurants cook better on Sunday. I don't know. I wouldn't know. I'm here on Sundays. But I will let you know that one Sunday when I do. No, I think if I'm not going to be here on a Sunday, I don't want to be in the shops. Take me to the mountains or the beach. Like that's, you know, if I'm going to miss church, let it be for something that, yes, it's worth it. So there's an encounter that happens where Moses walks outside, all the noise of the camp, all the influence. How many of us hear voices constantly speaking to us about what to do? What is the best next move? For your marriage, you should try this. For your business, you should try that. When was the last time that someone spoke God into you? And say, hey, if you're having an issue in your marriage, go seek Jesus. If you're having an issue with your business, go and listen to this podcast. It will give you the step 1, 2, and 3. No, go wrestle with Jesus. That was his encounter. He was determined to make a point that I will meet with you. And I'm going to show up. And I'm going to wrestle you. And I'm going to wait for you to speak to me. And I'm going to wait for you to change your mind and say, my presence will go with you. I wonder what happened if he would have settled for that. For just getting the promised land. His response, Moses' response was to refuse to move any inch without the presence of God. Saying to him, it doesn't matter if I have the promised land. It doesn't matter if I'm going to have your protection. Because what I really, really want is your presence. And this was a challenge. And this was a question that cut me so deeply this week. If God will give me my promised land, and I don't know what that is for you, but I know what it looks like for us. If God was to answer that one prayer that you keep on praying, maybe you are single and you're like, oh, the day that I found my spouse, that will be the day. I was in that space and I'm so grateful I'm not at that space anymore. I was terrified who I was going to marry because I'm like, if this doesn't last, I have a problem. He has a problem. I was terrified The moment that I made that decision and I knew he was the one, and I knew he wasn't the one, I made him the one. Let me just rephrase that, because now you're going to be like looking for the one. Who is the one? No, the one is the one that you choose. Just make sure the person you choose is choosing Jesus. Because otherwise, it just doesn't work. I was like, whew, that's huge. So maybe you are looking for that one person and you're like, oh, if God was to give me that. And if he does today, if he says, I will give you that business that you are seeking, that financial breakthrough. In our family, we're working really hard to get our finances right. And if today God said to me, your finances are sorted, but my present doesn't go with you, I'll be like, I don't know, sounds like a good deal. I mean, no stressing every month. Not having to juggle, your budget and things like that. That sounds very tempting. I'm not going to be like, oh no, God, if my present is good, I want to carry on in that. Like, seriously, God, I just want your presence. What if he was to restore your heart? Again, our family has gone through hectic heartbreak in the last 2 years. And if God was to say to me, I will give you back that, what your heart looked like before January this year and February last year, I don't know if I will say, God, I did your presence. I think I'm like, yeah, give me my heart back, God. I don't want to be broken anymore. If God was to say, I will give you a church full of people that love you and they will never complain about you, I'm like, I am taking that deal now. It's a deal. I don't know. I'm like, God, search my heart, because I think that sometimes I'm going to settle for the promised land rather than seeking your presence. And yet, in the other hand, every time that we go through something tough, my only response to my kids and to my husband is like, if I didn't have the presence of God with me, I don't know how other people do it. How do you go to being brokenhearted and just wake up next day? How do you face every day the promises of God, knowing that right now your life does not look like that? How do you believe again for something new when you're still hanging and praying that God will answer your last prayer? How do you speak healing when you know that you are physically sick? I'm like, God, if it wasn't for your presence, I wouldn't stay married. I wouldn't be a good mom. Even with his presence, sometimes it's so difficult. I wouldn't be able to lead people and speak to people. I wouldn't come to church if it wasn't for your presence. I come because I need you. Beyond running church, beyond being the pastor, beyond what is expected, I need God to speak to me. I need the worship. I need the encouragement. I need the preach. I need his word. I need his presence. Because the heart of worship is not just to seek God's hand. God, what can you do for me? But it's actually to seek his face. God, I want to see you. I want to hear you. The byproduct might be healing or might not. The byproduct might be miracles, or he might not. It might be provision, but it might not. But that's not the point, because we are seeking the face of God and not just his hand. So worship is about showing up. Just like Moses did. Away from the noise of the camp and refusing to move without God's presence. So this is a response. Every Sunday, as we speak about closer, there's going to be a moment where we're going to set up a place for you to respond. We don't just want you to hear a message and then go home and we're like, oh yeah, that was okay. I mean, it was shorter than normal. That was great. But actually to like ponder, God, is it me? Am I seeking your face, or am I still in the camp? Are you calling me today to be a Moses? I mean, how easy it is to be a Moses in our lives, that we can just follow. Let that person be the one that starts with worship, and then I'll just follow, right? That's great. Let Pastor John be the one that worship. Could you be a Moses in your family, in your workplace? Could you be the one that is going to set up that tent meeting in your family and be like, our family is meeting with Jesus today. It's going to be chaotic, especially if you have children, but we're going to meet with Jesus. In our workplace, we're going to meet with Jesus. Could you be a Joshua this morning? That even though you're not the face of what God is doing, you are there right behind this person. I believe there could be a lot of Joshuas in this place. And you don't need to wait for a prophetic word of someone saying, I can see you. You're like, God, I want to be Joshua. When everybody else leaves, I want to remain. I want to show up. I want to be there before anyone. I want to be there last one. God, whatever you say, I will be there. But the application for us, pitch a tent. Not just today as we do it together and we sing. Pitch a tent in your house. In the morning, your tent might be your car. Some of you are early in the morning driving. Let that be your tent. Don't listen to podcasts. You have enough podcasts. My goodness, there's a podcast for everything and anything under the sun. Tell me which podcast have made you better. Tell me how much of that have you applied. Because I have listened to hundreds of podcasts and I have very little that I can hear. But if I go into the presence of God. So let our tent be that. I'm first going to meet with God. And then I might listen to a podcast. I'm first going to pitch a tent. And let us be courageous enough to say, God, you can give me the promised land today, and that will be great. You can give me your protection, and that will be amazing. But if your presence doesn't go with me, I don't want to move. Worship is showing up.